Open your Bibles to Luke chapter 10. It'll be the end of Luke chapter 10. Today is the last day. This summer we've been doing Kingdom Kids every other Sunday, just as a way to give our volunteers a little rest and in view of the fact that in the summer numbers tend to be down a little bit. And so every other Sunday, today's the last day that we don't have Kingdom Kids. After today, we'll have it every week. Again, just want to say thank you so much to those of you who serve in our kids, whether it's nursery or Kingdom Kids or Sunday nights or Wednesday nights or wherever. You're laboring to produce things like we saw this morning, to see kids baptized, to see kids receive Christ and be baptized and become servants of Christ and involved in this church in new ways. And so thank you so much for all that you do in that. I find a pretty common thing that my family says to me, my family up in Kentucky, when I'm on the phone with them. I'll be talking to them, and it usually annoys me when they say this. We'll get to the end of the phone call, and they'll say to me, sometimes I think about calling you, but I don't do it because I don't know what you're doing. You might be busy. And I'm always annoyed because I'm like, I don't know what anybody's doing when I call them. That's what voicemail's for. But I have to humbly step back and say, do they say that because I've created a perception in their mind that I'm always busy? I hope not. But that's our day, isn't it? We take pride in how busy we are. So I want to ask you how life is going, and you'll say, good, we've been so busy. We wear our busyness like a badge of honor. We're the most busy culture in history. 100 years ago, they went to work. Generally, they went to work. They came home from work. They stayed home. We, today, try to add as many things to our schedule as possible. We go to work, we come home, and then we go out and do more and more things. We have so many irons in the fire, and we teach our kids to do that as well. That's what's important in life, we tell them. Be involved in as much as you can. You only live once, and you need to make the most of everything that you do. And so that's why they are involved in 5 sports and 4 extracurricular activities. It's why your car is full of fast food wrappers, because your family meals take place going to and from things every day. And when we're not working, we pack our life full of stuff, don't we? Our life is like Tetris, and we're trying to fit it all together to make it work just right. We fit as much travel in as we possibly can. 2022 has flown by for my family. We have traveled somewhere every month except for June. In January, we went up to Kentucky to celebrate the holidays with my family. February, we had to go back up because my granddad passed away. March, Adrian and I went to Disney for a day for my birthday. April, I went to a pastor's conference in Kentucky for 4 days. May, I had to go to Ohio to be a groomsman at a friend's wedding. And so finally in June, I said, Adrian, we're going nowhere this month. We're staying home. And then July, we went somewhere. In August, we went somewhere. So apparently June was enough for me, I guess. But if you're anything like me, on top of that, you fill every quiet moment you have with something. I tend to always have something playing in the background, whether it's a podcast or music or an audio book or a YouTube video. I'm always wanting to learn and think and have all kinds of things coming into my mind. I do this while I drive and while I walk the garbage to the end of our driveway, because it's like a 20-minute walk there and back. And I do it while I do the dishes and mow and grill and everything. I've always got headphones in listening to something. And if I don't have something in my ear, sometimes I feel like I'm wasting that time. I could be learning something right now. I think to myself, I got to use every minute I have to learn something. And in light of that, I've forgotten how to just sit and be still and be quiet. And many others have as well. And I think we know this busy life is unhealthy for us. It's unhealthy. We weren't made for that kind of frenetic, always on the run. We weren't made to run around like a frantic, headless chicken. We just weren't. And as it pertains to prayer, we're spending this month talking about prayer, Sunday mornings and Sunday nights and Wednesday night. As it pertains to prayer, very often the reason we don't pray is we're too busy. We're too busy. There's too many other things in our life to take care of that we probably don't even think about stopping and praying. So how do we battle that busyness? What do we do to fight that busyness so that we can have a thriving prayer life? Let's look at Luke chapter 10, verses 38 through 42. Now, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into her house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet and listened to his teaching. But Martha was distracted with much serving. And she went up to him and said, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? Tell her then to help me. But the Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things, but one thing is necessary. Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. Notice the passage begins with the phrase, now as they went on their way. I love the way the book of Luke is structured as a book. Chapters 1 through 3 roughly tell what Jesus was doing before he started his ministry. You see his birth and him growing up and all of that. 4 through 9, you see a picture of his ministry. You see him teaching and casting out demons and healing. And roughly at the end of chapter 9, it says Jesus set his face to Jerusalem, and he starts going. And 10 through 19, chapters 10 through 19, are that journey. It all takes place on that journey to Jerusalem. And then the final chapters of the book is when he's in Jerusalem, dying and rising. So 10 through 19 is a journey to Jerusalem. It is walking with Jesus, showing the journey of following Jesus. Luke isn't necessarily putting these events in chronological order. We know that because the village he enters here in chapter 10 is Bethany. It's where Mary and Martha lived. And Bethany is only 2 miles away from Jerusalem, and he's going to be on the road to Jerusalem for another 9 chapters. So these aren't in chronological order. Luke is putting them in order to teach us a lesson about what it's like following Jesus. He's going to teach us things along the way, he's going to do things along the way, and he's going to work in us along the way. This is showing what life in Christ is like. Here's the deal. You will not have a strong life in Christ without a vibrant prayer life. It'll be like a marriage where the spouses never talk. Your discipleship will go no deeper than your prayer life. We see 2 women in this story. These women pop up in other parts of the Gospels as well. They're the sisters of Lazarus. Mary and Martha are Lazarus' sister. Lazarus, I guess, has gone to the grocery store during this story, so he's not there. But Mary and Martha are here. They were friends of Jesus. Anytime Jesus was in Jerusalem, the 3 or 4 times he went, he would swing over to Bethany and visit Lazarus, Mary, and Martha, and this is one of those times. Martha and Mary. Martha would be a great Southern woman. She's always keeping her house cleaned and organized, always thinking of new ideas for her kitchen. She's at Hobby Lobby like every week looking for new signs to put on her wall. She keeps her hair nice and all put together. She went to the beauty parlor like every week. Anytime you went over to her house, she offered you something to eat and drink. She is involved in all the events in town. She's up on all the gossip in town. She's got about 15 plates spinning around her at the same time. And she's the one that welcomes Jesus into the home. Verse 38, a woman named Martha welcomed him into her home. And then there's Mary. All we know is that she's the sister of Martha. That's all it tells us about her. Based on the fact that Martha is the one that invited Jesus in, it's probably Mary is the younger sister, and Martha is the older sister. All we learn from this story is that she's Martha's sister and that she's devoted to Jesus. It says she sat at his feet. If you ever read the Gospel of Luke, pay attention for that phrase, at the Lord's feet. I'm reading Luke for the 21 days, and I've seen it pop up a lot. Mary is a picture of what devotion to Jesus should look like. We sit at his feet, and we listen to him. Sit at his feet. It's what students would do with a rabbi in those days. If someone wanted to learn from a rabbi, they'd go sit at his feet. They'd learn from him. If you wanted to learn from that rabbi, that's what you do. You'd sit at his feet, you'd ask questions of what he's teaching, you'd spend time with him. This is what your prayer life must be like. There's a place for saying little prayers throughout the day. You must do that. Pray always, pray without ceasing. But you need a time in the day when maybe in the morning, maybe at night, maybe somewhere in between, where you get alone, you put away distractions, and you spend time talking with the Lord and praying. Maybe that's 5 minutes, maybe that's an hour, I don't know, whatever suits you and whatever you can squeeze into your life, but you need to fight for that. This has been called many things by many people. It's been called quiet time. It's been called devotional time. It's been called daily Bible reading. Whatever it's called, this is what you're doing. You're doing two things. You're talking and you're listening. You're talking and you're listening. You talk freely to the Lord. You're not just listing off a bunch of names. Do that. You're not just praying general prayers like, be with everybody in the hospital. No, you're talking to the Lord like you talk with a friend over lunch. You're getting real about your life. You're expressing your desires and ambitions and dreams to Him. You're praying for those things we've talked about the last 2 weeks. You're praying for His kingdom. You're praying for daily provision. You're praying for forgiveness of sin and for protection and things like that. You're spending time with the Lord at His feet. You're first talking. Secondly, you're listening. You're listening. First, you are in the Bible listening. I hope you're spending time in a book of the Bible during these 21 days and really just soaking it up, getting to know that book, really listening to it. The Lord speaks to us through His Word. Sometimes literally through what's on the page. Sometimes the Spirit prompts in you just seeing one word of something that stands out as true, but it's not necessarily what the passage is saying. Just one word stands out to you, and it's profound, and it just grips you. He speaks to you like that. Secondly, a way of listening is just listening, like the same way you'd listen to anybody. You're just listening. You're just being silent, and you're not talking, and you're just silently listening. The Spirit speaks in moments like that in ways you'll never hear if you always have noise on like me. You sit at His feet, you pray, and you listen. But why don't we do that well? Why don't we do that well? Well, verses 40 and 41, I think, tell us. Martha is busy. She's busy in her house. She's not sitting at the feet of Jesus because she's busy. Look at what it says. She's distracted with much serving. We're going to get to that in a minute. Seems like an oxymoron, but she's distracted with much serving. We don't do that well. We don't sit in silence and spend time with the Lord well because very often we're more like Martha than Mary. We're often busy in unhealthy ways. It's not necessarily evil to have a lot going on. Don't hear that this morning. Charles Spurgeon, my hero in the ministry, was a busy man. He preached 4 to 10 sermons every week. He read on average 6 books a week. He revised his sermons for publication. He lectured at a college every week. He edited a monthly magazine. He wrote 150 books in his lifetime. He pastored a church of 6,000 people and knew each church member by name. He directed a college. He wrote a lot of handwritten letters to people. He ran an orphanage. He oversaw 66 charities in addition to being a husband and a father. That's probably why he died in his 50s. But you see, you should read his prayers. I've got a book over in my office of just Charles Spurgeon's prayers. He was an incredible man of prayer, and he was busy. So it's okay to be busy. It's wrong to be busy in bad ways. We busy ourselves so often with the wrong things, and our prayer life suffers for it. This is what Martha's doing. She's running around her house trying to make this perfect bed and breakfast for Jesus. And Mary's not helping, and she's getting angry with Mary. What's wrong with Mary? Her devotion to Jesus is not what Mary's is. She's got a different idea of what devotion to Jesus is, so she's mad at Mary. She's distracted, as we often are. Jesus tells her, "You're anxious and troubled about so many things, Martha." Same with us. We're busy, anxious, and troubled about many things. What are some of those things that we're busy and troubled and anxious with? Well, let's categorize 3 this morning. First, we're busy and anxious and worried about world events that don't affect us. World events that don't affect us. I was talking recently, I was at a wedding reception a couple months ago, and there was a guy there that I knew. He was the only guy at the whole wedding that I knew, so I spent the whole time talking to him. He's in his early 20s. He's a youth pastor over in East Georgia. It was here in Tifton. He's from Tifton. He and I had a conversation a couple of years ago that I don't even remember, but he said that it stuck out to him so much, where he was not a pastor yet at that point, and he walked up to me at some get-together we were at, and he said, "So, what do you think about all this controversy going on in the Southern Baptist Convention?" And apparently, I don't remember this, but I responded, I don't really have time to keep up with that stuff because I got a church to pastor. Most of the things that happen in the SBC will never affect our church. I need to have a knowledge of it so I can lead you through certain things. But a lot of things I don't care about because it doesn't affect me and it doesn't affect us. There's no need for me to lose time or sleep over it. This happens a lot with the news, doesn't it? I have been very vocal in my time here that I wish CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, and all the others would just go out of business because there's no reason we need a 24-hour news cycle. We don't need the same news story talked about for 9 hours until something new comes up. That does nothing but produce in us anxiety and worry. There's no reason we need anything more than an hour evening news broadcast to inform us what's going on in the world, unless, of course, there's a special report, 9/11, something like that. But news has been turned into entertainment. You know that, don't you? It's been turned into entertainment. They do the same thing on CNN and Fox News that they do on ESPN, right? They get these two talking heads, and those two talking heads disagree. They put them up on each side of the main guy, and the main guy gets them riled up to yell at each other, right? And so on ESPN, when they do it, this guy over here's, Brett Favre's the best football player in history. I don't know anything about football. I just picked two random football players, so don't judge me. But the other guy over here is like, no, it's Tony Romo. What's wrong with you? And this guy over here is like, you don't even know how to play football, you fat idiot. And they just go at each other, and you're sitting there like eating your popcorn like, ooh, this is good. This is good. So when ESPN does that, it's all fun and games because we all know ultimately football doesn't matter. Life will be no different no matter who wins or loses a football game. I hope some of you know that when the Super Bowl happens next year. But when Fox and CNN does that, it seems more ultimate. When people are arguing about Kamala Harris or Mitt Romney or climate change or terrorism, it feels more important because that has to do with our liberty and our life, and you can't look away from it. So you watch the news for 4 hours until your eyes bleed, and you see everybody argue about climate change, and then you say you have no time to pray. It's easy to busy ourselves worrying about events in the world that are probably never going to affect us. Second thing that we busy ourselves with is phone and social media. I put out a post on Facebook a few weeks ago when I was preparing this sermon, and I asked, what keeps you busy from praying? What's the biggest thing that keeps you busy from praying? Many of you responded to that. And I got several answers, but the overwhelming answer I got from most people was phones and social media. It's not an understatement to say that cell phones are the most used narcotic drug in America. Cell phones are the most used narcotic drug in America. In fact, so much of cell phones work off of what's called dopamine. Dopamine is a chemical your body produces that makes you feel pleasure. When you do something pleasurable, the dopamine releases in your body to say, that feels good, give me more of that. However, dopamine is morally neutral. It doesn't know what's good or bad. It just does it. And so dopamine will release in your body if you laugh at a joke or if you do drugs. It has no way of knowing that's good or bad. Don't do that. No. And that dopamine releases in your body when you get a notification on your phone. That buzz goes off in your pocket and you're like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's the weather. Who cares? But that dopamine released, and it was like a little piece of candy there for a second. Every time you see that little red circle on Facebook, dopamine activates. I got 3 notifications. Let's see what they are. And then it's like telling you this person posted. I mean, my notifications lately say, David Clausen posted this. And I'm like, so what? Why are you telling me that one of my friends posted something as a notification? To get me more dopamine hits. It feels good. And we are addicted to the dopamine of our phone. We are. It's why you can't go to the bathroom without looking at your phone. It's why I go into public restrooms and see men standing at the urinal looking at their phone. It's why people can't sit at a stoplight without looking down at their phone, and then it turns green, and in South Georgia, I got to decide, do I honk and sound like I'm mad, or just let them know, hey, the light's green. I'm not mad, just, hey, the light's green, get going. It's why if you ever forget your phone at home, you got to turn around and go back and get it, even if you're not going to need it where you're going. You feel naked without it. It's why everywhere you go in public, people are on their phone, no matter what. You go to a restaurant and a family of 4 sits at the table across from you, and they're all sitting there looking at their phone, and I'm thinking, I'm eating here too. I know it's going to cost me a little bit to eat here. Couldn't you do that at home with a TV dinner and save a lot of money? That dopamine feels good, and we can't get enough of it. It's why often your phone is the first thing you look at when you wake up in the morning and the last thing you look at before you go to bed. But prayer usually doesn't produce dopamine. Prayer doesn't give you that dopamine. Prayer gives you joy. Prayer produces joy, and joy is deeper and longer lasting, but it's not easy. It's not easy to develop joy. It doesn't come through simply pushing a button. No, but it doesn't pass away at the same time. People spend so much time watching and participating in the newest TikTok challenge, but those challenges have about a week of fame and then they're forgotten. Like in a couple years, I promise you, everyone will have forgotten that currently people are slapping each other with tortillas on the internet. A couple of years, just wait. We won't even remember that happened because we don't remember most of the trends that have happened for the past 3 years now. Joy doesn't do that. It doesn't pass away. It lasts and it forms you, but you have to fight for it. You have to fight for it. So starve yourself of cell phone dopamine. Don't wake up and spend 30 minutes on your phone while you're still in bed. Like when you wake up, make a goal that you're not going to look at your phone for an hour. I mean, turn the alarm off and set that thing aside. And just enjoy the glory of waking up in the morning. Because understand, the first thing you set your mind on during the morning is going to form your day. It's going to affect what your day is about. And then take some extended time to starve yourself of it. I'm as addicted to the dopamine of my phone as you are. We were on vacation 3 weeks ago, and on vacation, I deleted every social media app off my phone, and I left my phone in the condo, and the first couple days, it was like I was having withdrawals, but it was wonderful. It was wonderful to not always have to look, oh, somebody contacted me. No, to just be free. It was glorious. I was able to be more present with those around me and more sensitive to what the Lord was saying to me, and I was able to just relax. I could just sit and do nothing, and it was wonderful. Consider cutting back on that social media. Do you really need it as much as you use it? I try to remind myself regularly that Facebook is a tool. It's not a life source. I should use it to accomplish things. If I need to post something out to our church, get on there and do it. It's not a life source. I don't have to sit and eat from it for 30 minutes at a time. I'm going to use it with a purpose and not waste time. Starve yourself of your cell phone. You have so much free time during the day to pray, but you don't notice because you're trapped in this glowing rectangle. And then thirdly, third thing that busies us and worries us and makes us anxious is doing too much. Doing too much. The fact is, we can often fail to pray because of how much we are trying to do in our lives. This is what Martha's doing in verse 40 and 41. She's running around her house trying to prepare the perfect dinner for Jesus. Verse 40, she's distracted with much serving. Interesting. She's not distracted watching the TV. She's not distracted with her phone. She's distracted serving. We hold serving up as something noble. Like it's a noble thing to give your life to serve somebody until serving becomes a distraction. It's really interesting. I told you Luke has arranged these stories not chronologically, but in certain ways that they all connect to each other. What comes before this story? Well, verses 25 through 37 is the parable of the Good Samaritan. We all know that story, I think, but in case you don't, a man is going along the way and he gets mugged and left for dead in the road, and a priest comes and passes by him, doesn't have time to deal with him, so goes on. A Levite comes and passes by him and goes on. A Samaritan comes up and finds him and picks him up and bandages him up and takes him to a hotel and leaves him there and tells the hotel, take care of him, I'll pay for everything when I come back. Jesus tells that story, and then Luke tells the story of Martha and Mary. And then after that, he tells the story of the Lord's Prayer. Interesting, those three stories are put together. So Luke is telling us, serve others like Martha and the Good Samaritan, but be careful that it doesn't steal your devotion to Jesus like it did for Martha. And then be devoted to Jesus like Mary And then it follows in with a prayer and what it's like to pray to Jesus. It's all strung together there. Be a servant like Martha, but have a heart like Mary devoted to Jesus. You know, our activist culture tricks us into thinking that we, as one person, can fix every problem in the world. That I can be Superman and I can be everywhere and save everyone and fix everything all before dinner tonight. Let me say something really freeing to you. You're not God. You're not God. You're just a man, you're just a woman. You can do one thing at a time, and you can be only one place at a time. Serve others, love others, do good, but know your limits and know who you are. You're a little dot on a little dot in a universe full of little dots. That's how much change you can cause to the whole world. Some of my most distracted moments come when I'm trying to be more than one man, because I can't. Martha is being like this because she's trying to suit the expectations of others rather than the expectations of Jesus. She's served many people before in the past, and they've expected her to have this big, incredible meal, this big event thing, and she thinks, well, Jesus is important. He probably expects even more than that. So she's trying to serve Jesus like that. But Jesus doesn't expect that. Jesus expects us to be faithful, not to be more than we are. We are one person. He doesn't expect us to be more than one person and do more than one person can do. Jesus is looking for more from you than simple faithfulness. So stop living in the bondage of the expectations of others. Distraction feels important, but it's unhealthy for you. It makes you embittered toward others. Look at what Martha says. Jesus, tell my sister to get in here and help me. Verse 40, I'm sorry. Jesus, tell my sister to get, you're preaching in there. Maybe you need to preach on a sermon on hospitality. Mary needs to hear that. Look, you know I'm distracted when I'm grumpy with those that I love. If I'm grumpy with my wife or with my son or with my in-laws or my parents or whatever, it's because I'm distracted. Not only does it make you embittered toward others, it makes you anxious and troubled. That's what Jesus says in verse 41. Listen to how he says it. Martha, Martha, breathe. Just breathe. Hear him try to calm her down. Martha, you're anxious and troubled. I don't expect you to be like that. I want you to come and rest. I want to give you a peace that passes understanding. So stop running around like crazy and know that I'm God. Just sit here like your sister. Martha is worried, sick about many things. Mary has chosen, notice, verse 42, one thing. 41 says, you're troubled about many things. One thing is necessary. Many things and one thing. Martha is driving herself mad, worrying about many things, when really only one thing is necessary. And what is that? Well, it's what Mary has chosen, verse 42. Mary has chosen the good portion which will not be taken away from her. The one thing that is best is what Mary is doing. My translation renders it the good portion. From the Greek, a better translation is probably the better choice, the right choice. She's chosen the better choice of you two, the right choice, the one thing that matters. Mary has chosen the most important thing. She's chosen what truly is important. Because understand what Mary and Martha are working toward here. Martha is worried sick about preparing the right meal for Jesus. And what's going to happen to that meal? Well, Jesus is going to eat it. It's going to pass through his stomach and intestines and out his colon, and it's going to be forgotten about. Martha is sitting at the feet of Jesus, learning from him, and that will never be taken from her. That won't end up in the toilet later. She won't lose it. There's going to come a day also when Martha can't serve like this anymore because her body's going to get worn out. Mary is going to be able to sit and listen to Jesus forever. So many of the things we're distracted by aren't going to last. Internet trends change every week. Nobody remembers them because new ones come along. News cycles have a different story every 8 hours, and usually you've already forgotten about the previous one. All of it's going to pass away. I'm imploring you today to choose the good portion. to choose the good portion that Mary chose. Psalm 16:5, the Lord is my chosen portion in my cup. Psalm 73, verse 26, my flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever. Jesus is a better portion. He's better than all the other crazy stuff we're busying ourselves with. He's better. So we all must fight distraction daily. And our prayer life doesn't thrive because we're distracted. We don't even think to pray because it feels like we're doing nothing. And you'll know if that's you by how you respond to a famous quote from Martin Luther. I have so much to do today that I shall spend the first 3 hours in prayer. I hear that and I'm like, you're going to get nothing done, man, if you're going to waste 3 hours praying. We must overcome distraction. It's destroying your life. And there's so much better for you found in the good portion, in the one thing, in sitting at Jesus' feet. So what do? Well, perhaps you commit to pray when you wake up. Before you look at that phone, that glowing rectangle that wants to suck you into the abyss, maybe you just pray. And maybe that's you get out of bed and get on your knees for 30 seconds and pray. Maybe it's you put the phone away and you walk into your bathroom and pray in there. I don't know what you do, but maybe you pray when you wake up. And pray throughout your day. Attack those distractions that come with prayer. So you get to a red light and everything in you wants to look and check Facebook. Use a red light to pray. Spend time praying at the red light. Recognize you're only one person. So stop trying to do the work of 5 people and the activities of 5 people because you can't. You're only one person. Starve yourself of dopamine, especially that comes from your phone, and pursue joy. It's harder, but it's longer lasting. And recognize the goodness of this better choice. We think that what Martha is doing, if you saw physically what Martha's doing in our time, you would think she was a very faithful woman and you would be really proud of her. But Jesus says you're busying yourself and you're wearing yourself thin. Recognize the goodness of the better choice. Kill distractions and come sit at the feet of Jesus because it's the only way you're going to find rest for your soul. Let's pray. Father, you know each of our hearts. You know how distracted each of us can get, how easily it is for us to fall prey to distractions and busyness, sometimes for even good things. Lord, sometimes serving others is what distracts us. Sometimes church is what distracts us. Sometimes so many good things distract us, Lord. Help us to choose what's better. And that doesn't mean that we don't serve, and that doesn't mean that we don't, serve in church and do things. But Lord, if we've lost our focus, what we're distracted with is not going to thrive. And so, Lord, help us come sit at the feet of Jesus. As he told the disciples early on, come and see. Come and see. It's so much better to just come be with Jesus. And may that change how we live our lives outside of that. Move in us today, Lord, to desire to be at the feet of Jesus. It's in his name that we pray. Amen.